All right, folks, now we're going to get into the heart. And right now I'm just going to give you an overview of the heart today. So let's take a look here. The ancient Greeks believed that the heart was actually the seat of intelligence. Other civilizations thought it was a source of emotions, but we now today know that it is the part of the cardiovascular system. It's actually like the main part of the cardiovascular system. We call it the pump because it pumps that blood through the vessels, through the entire body, to get those nutrients and the oxygen to the body where it needs it. So, some main functions of the cardiovascular system, like I said, to pump. Take those oxygen, those nutrients, waste, right? We want to get that waste out of those body cells and get them to what other organ they need to go to get expelled from the body, such as nitrogen and carbon dioxide. So the nitrogen is going to go towards that urinary system. We're going to excrete it that way. The carbon dioxide to the lungs, and we'll respire it. So we have some heart coverings. If you want to think about what the size of your heart, it's about the size of your fist here. And it's situated in the mediastinum, which is medial position of the thoracic cavity. So it's actually more in that middle part of our thoracic cavity. A lot of times we look to our left, right? So it's actually a little bit over it a little bit. Now it is attached to the end of the blood vessels, and that's called the base, right? So where it's attached at the end with the blood vessels is called the base. And the apex is the pointed end of the heart. So here is our base, right here up top, and down below is the apex. Okay, and the apex actually points to the left. So we have it kind of points off to the left, but it's actually situated a little bit more medial in our thoracic cavity there. And we see that here as well. We see that apex pointing off to the left side of the body there. So if you need to, you can refer back to the picture back on your notes. You can refer back onto this slide as well too, because I have this slide actually posted on the classroom as well. And the pericardium is one type of covering. It's the sac that encloses the heart. The fibrous pericardium is loose-fitting and tough. Its main things are to protect and to anchor. So have that toughness there, is that some great protection there. So where does it anchor it? It anchors it the diaphragm and the large blood vessels to the thoracic wall. So here's our pericardium all along the outside here. We see. All right, it's going to anchor those blood vessels to the thoracic wall there. There's that fibrous pericardium. Zoom in a little bit there. We can see there. And this is going a little bit deeper into the actual heart chamber. So this is the wall of the heart. A little quite thick there as well. All right, so now we also have the serous pericardium. It's thin, slippery. That's there to reduce friction. Because remember, the heart is constantly pumping, right? So there's going to be some movement there. So we want to be able to reduce some of that friction of that movement. The parietal layer lines the whole inside of the fibrous pericardium. It actually doubles back over on itself and forms what's called the visceral layer. Very thin, covers the whole surface of the heart, and actually becomes the outer layer of the heart. And between these two layers is a film of serous fluid, a watery fluid that is between these two membranes that is produced by the cell membrane themselves there. So let's look back here. Here is that doubling, folding back over that we see. There's that fibrous pericardium again. But there's the parietal layer and that serous pericardium. And that pericardial cavity here, right? This is where that fluid is going to be, right in here. Now, you might have heard of pericarditis. It's actually just inflammation of the pericardium. We can see that here. We see a lot of inflammation here. We don't see it too much here, but we can see it is inflamed right here. See how looks like it has grown in size. That's the inflammation right there. So that can happen to the heart coverings there. So let's talk about these layers some more. The outer layer of the heart is actually the visceral, or the innermost layer of the pericardium. Got a lot of layers going on here, so it's very important that we go back We look at the pictures, we identify them, and we spend a lot of time identifying and looking back, and identifying and looking back to make sure we know where we're located in our heart. So when it's referred as the heart layer, its actual name becomes the epicardium. All right. The middle layer is the myocardium. It's a thick muscle layer of the heart. It's made up of muscles, spiral circular groups called bundles. We've talked about bundles before. And the muscle is held together by a fibrous skeleton. So it's a network of fibers holding all together there. So here we are again, back at our same image. And we got our pericardium, and then we have the myocardium. Right? So here's that myocardium there. Very thick bundles of muscles there. So pericardium, then we have our myocardium there. So remember, myo, M, think middle. Middle starts with M, myo starts with M. Now we go to the innermost. Now the innermost is called the endocardium. So endo, inner, think of it that way to help you as well. And this one's glistening white of squamous endothelium resting on thin connective tissue there. It follows every contour of the heart muscle. It covers each of the heart valves as each vessel actually leaves the heart as well. And it becomes the lining of the vessels themselves. So here's an actual heart, and then here's our digital rendition of it as well. Here, let's take a look here. Each heart layer, especially the middle one, has a lot of nerves and blood vessels and lymph vessels. This is a organ, this is a muscle, it needs a lot of nutrients, it's working all the time, so there's a lot of blood vessels in there. And now all those blood vessels working together in the network together is called the coronary system. Coronary system. So, how does the blood get through all the blood vessels? Well, we have arteries. Arteries carry blood away from the heart to the body tissues. The capillaries are the thin, tiny vessels that carry the blood through each organ. So from arteries to capillaries. And then the veins are going to carry the blood back to the heart. So arteries leave the heart. The capillaries carry that blood to the organs. And then the veins will carry the blood back to the heart. And all together, we call that the cardiovascular system. Here's a digital rendition of that. We got the lungs up here, we got the heart here, and this is going to symbolize the body right here. These are the capillaries of the lungs and of the body. So, the heart pumps blood from the left ventricle. So all the pumping really comes from down here from the ventricle. So it goes from the left ventricle and out, and then from there to the body. And this is representing all the body here. So these capillaries, we're going to do some gas exchange here. And then we're going to take it right back up to the atrium. Okay, this is the right atrium. And from there, it's going to flow into the right ventricle and get pumped again to get reoxygenated back up at the lungs. And once the blood has been reoxygenated, it'll come back to the heart, flow into the left atrium, and now we're back in the left ventricle. So it's a double loop system. There's one loop, and there's the second loop. The pulmonary circuit and the systemic circuit. Here's another look at it. The blood flow here. And this up here represents an atrium, and this is an atrium. This is a ventricle, and that's the ventricle. And I got it labeled here as well, too. So this is our right atrium and our right ventricle. This is our left atrium and our left ventricle. Now take a look at the colors. Blue is going to symbolize that it is low in oxygen, and red, it is high in oxygen. So from the body, it's low in oxygen. It goes off to the lungs to get reoxygenated, and it comes back from the lungs from this atrium, and then it flows in this ventricle and gets pumped back out to the body. All right, so we've covered layers. There's a lot of many different layers, and they all have different characteristics, so make sure you guys spend a lot of time studying those, and then also the flow of the blood. Next time when we meet, we'll start taking a look at a a little more of the tissues, the cells, the histology of our heart.